Hello there, everybody. This is David Brower here for the Make Living Pleasurable Show. And today I'm going to be bringing on a very special guest, Gido Schimanski, in a few minutes here. Let's see how we can bring him on. Hope everyone is doing great on this Friday. It's Friday, 5 o'clock, September 3rd. This is the 4th episode of Make Living Pleasurable Show. And we wanted to bring you a special guest to explore how to integrate pleasure and flow, and how flow is pleasure. So thanks for coming on here.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, I don't miss a chance talking to you.
So again, welcome, Gido, A.K.A. the Flow Guy. Wanted to bring you on here to the show to talk about flow and how to actually bring pleasure into flow, and if flow is pleasure, and explore the subject of, what exactly is flow and how does pleasure relate to that. And so, let's just get right into it. First of all, the question is, what is flow?
Straight for the biggie. Straight for the big one.
I'll let you do that with pleasure with me.
So for me, flow is what happens when you stop sabotaging yourself. Flow is what happens when things fall into place, but not necessarily the things that you want to fall into place, but the things that are good for you. I find most people believe or think or have this romantic idea about flow, that once they enter flow, life is all just going to be unicorns and rainbows and everything is just going to be lovely. And I don't think that's what being human really is all about. Being human is about growing, expanding, finding out what else is possible for you. And flow for me is being at the right time, at the right place for whatever is needed right now. That can be uncomfortable and it can be very comfortable. Usually for me, flow comes with a great sense of joy, because there's just such a certainty that life is happening for me. That's what flow is. And on my email, I think it actually says flow is what happens when you step out of your own way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions. First of all, I love that you use the word joy, that when you're in flow, if I heard you right, when you're in flow, there's joy. And it also feels to me like you're expressing that when you're in flow, there's a sense of a feeling of trust.
Exactly.
But you're not kind of second guessing yourself. You're not, like you said, I guess, sort of self-sabotaging. You're not perhaps overly questioning. You're not letting your ego or overthinking kind of take into control. It sounds like you're almost in kind of a are you kind of in a trance? Are you awake? Or like, can you give some example of what is an example of someone in flow?
Well, the way I started stumbling into this whole flow thing was literally a couple of years ago. I think it was about 3 years ago, in a morning meditation. And I was doing what I always did. I started visualizing. I started daydreaming. What do I want to achieve in my life? And then it suddenly hit me. What I do in my work is helping people release their limiting beliefs, their subconscious blocks and their filters. And in that meditation, I suddenly realized, as big as these goals might be, and as huge as these visions might be, they must be limited simply because they're coming through me. Simply because they must be coming through my filters, and therefore they're smaller than what's actually possible. So what would happen, the voice in my head said, if I just follow the gut feeling, if I follow intuition, if I follow flow, if I follow my soul, the divine, whatever name you want to put to it. And I used to call back then, I said, if I just follow the impulse without questioning it, as long as it feels right, do it. And I thought I was being crazy. So my first thought was, well, if I do that, I probably will never get off my couch anymore, because I'm you know, I like, you know, I'm just a, you know me, I'm quite lazy. I see myself as quite lazy. And then I started thinking about this more, meditating on this more, and then I realized, oh no, the next fear came up. No, I will never sit on my couch again, because suddenly all these ideas were coming in. You got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to record in video, and then you got to go to meet this person, and you know, it was a bit overwhelming. And so I shared this with a group of friends that night, expecting they would go, Guido, you're crazy, because the insight or the impulse was, we dare you to do a 30-day flow challenge. Follow the impulse, no questions asked, whatever feels like flow or right to you. And the kicker was, and you document everything live on Insta. Now, I'm happy in front of the camera. You know, I used to be an actor, so that's all fine for me. But as long as it's rehearsed, going live on an Insta feed for me was blank horror. So, you know, just going, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just sharing flow. And I shared this with a group of friends that night, and I thought they were going to tell me, Guido, you're crazy. And literally all of them said, we're going to join you. And so we went on this, and I think you might remember this time actually. And I went on this quest, and flow kind of starts with small nudges at first. It's the feeling of, you got to go now, you got to go to the gym now, or you shouldn't leave the house right now. And then a phone call comes in that you've been waiting for maybe months for. And then when it's done, you can go now. Flow is little things like, if you practice it, at what traffic light do I cross the street? You know, I always say, start playing with the small stuff first, and don't go straight for, do I want to delete my life insurance or leave my husband? You know, those are left for later. So what happened in this flow challenge was suddenly that I've been given very clear advice to what to do in every single next step throughout the day. Rather than me intending what I wanted to do, which I still did, I intended where I thought I wanted to go, and then I stepped completely out of the way and said, okay, flow, divine, soul, life, guide me. And one example that comes to mind was, it was 36 degrees. We had a heat wave here in Germany. That's the funny accent, by the way. And then I wanted to, you know, it was leg day. I wanted to go and work out. And I had a very clear impulse, you stay at home. I was like, no, I got to work out. And, you know, it's leg day and it needs to be done. No, you're staying at home. It's too hot. Stay on the couch. Lazy me was happy. So I stayed on that couch. And just as I got relaxed, about 45 minutes later, the impulse was, and now you go. And this sounds crazy, because it sounds like I had these conversations in my head, which I kind of had. And so I got up, because the deal was, don't question. I got up, I went to the studio. It was like a performance center for athletes where I was trained. Walked in there. The thing was, what I realized, they had a training day to train new physiotherapists that day that I didn't know about. So I would have walked straight into this training. But the most important part was, all the trainees had left, and the one person that I've been trying to get an appointment with, we were trying to get together for half a year, was there. And he said, it's so amazing to see you. Can we finally talk? And we had half an hour to exchange ideas, plan his next days, plan new courses. And I thought, that is why I needed to stay at home. I also thought, great, then I don't have to work out now. And the impulse was very clear, no, you get your butt on the training floor and you start working out. So, and these impulses, these little magical synchronicity moments happened literally not daily, but hourly. And that for me is flow. You wrote your book in flow, you know, you run into the right person to give you the next idea. You're looking for an assistant, you're looking for someone to publish. And if you stay open, you can't generate that with your brain. That's when you're in flow. Sorry, I really just took the big tour here.
Yeah, no, I love that. You can't, so you're saying you can't get to flow really just through your brain, through thinking. So how do you get to it then?
Start listening to the impulses. Start listening to the some might feel it, some might have words in their heads, some might have visions, some just know it's time to do something now, or I should be calling that person. So start following those little nudges. And I always say, well, if you know, if you get a knock on the door like 3 times in a row, you better listen. If some, you know, if people recommend the same book, actually in that time 3 people recommend the Surrender Experiment to me. Someone actually gave it to me, and I still didn't read it. You know,
Yeah.
so if things keep continuously popping up, stop questioning it. Just go for it. So it's a feeling place. It's not a thinking place for me.
Very nice. So let's talk a little bit about pleasure related to flow. First of all, I mean, let me ask you before you ask me. You know, what is pleasure for you, Gido, in the scope of relationship with flow?
I find that such a hard question. I really, really find that a hard question. Pleasure. I was thinking about this morning, because pleasure on one hand is joy. Pleasure is a sense of fulfillment for me, but pleasure is also, as you know, we talked about this for a lot of people, and for me as well, pleasure has a very physical connotation to it, if that's a word. You know, pleasure is something pleasurable. It feeds our senses. Let it be touch, let it be taste or smell, sexuality, sensuality. That's pleasure for me. Allowing yourself to indulge, to receive. I think that is pleasure for me, allowing yourself to receive. And flow, the pleasure in flow for me is, as I said before, just this reassurance, this knowing that everything is good and that I'm taken care of and I have to follow. Don't get me wrong, it can put you into a place of a lot of work. Flow, if I follow flow, there's usually just go, 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 go. But if I follow flow, there's also, and now you need to rest. But I'm on such a rush. No, you need to rest now. Go and take a massage. Get pleasure. Go to the theater. I'm a theater man. That's my background. So I take great pleasure from the arts, from food, from sensuality, from sexuality. And I need those pleasures in order to recharge and be ready for when flow hits again. That's actually wrong, because flow never stops. Flow telling you to stop, to rest, is flow. Being in a place of no pleasure and of fear. So flow is not just joy. Flow can be struggle, and because it brings up stuff that you need to release right now in order to then go to the next place. That's also flow. I guess flow is surrender. What's pleasure for you?
Pleasure is this feeling and sensing and knowing that everything is good, and that you can handle it, and you can figure it out, and you can take care of yourself. And in the larger scheme of life, the gratitude that you can sense, the appreciation, if it's good, bad, or ugly, what you're going through, if you can live in a sense of resilience, that this is part of the beautiful life that we all have an opportunity to live and to choose to live. Pleasure can be something that infuses all parts of it. Pleasure, I think, is and feel has gotten a very bad connotation, bad impression, not a bad, but it's been kind of pigeonholed into certain areas of life that are perhaps related to entertainment or sexuality or hedonism. And what I'm really seeking and questioning, this is a lot why I've started this Make Living Pleasurable show, is how can we actually expand the understanding and the experience and the living of pleasure in our everyday lives, so that we can bring more of it into all different aspects of our life. I mean, when you're doing a chore, why can't you find a way to make that pleasurable? I think there's ways to strategically, tactically, energetically, maybe you're doing something that's really boring, but if you put on music, or if you call a friend while you're doing it, maybe suddenly it becomes more pleasurable. Maybe if you go a little bit deeper into something, you can find something actually that takes you beyond sort of the ego and the head's impression of saying, I hate this, I don't like this, I don't want this, why me, why, this kind of woes me, kind of self-pity. So for me, pleasure is the permeation in everyday life of living in a sense of, deeper joy, I would say, enduring joy, and not preventing yourself from experiencing that because society or culture or your parents or some kind of conditioning said, no, when you go to the store and buy something, you shouldn't smile or make a joke at the person at the cash register to give them a moment of joy and release and pleasure. No, yes, you should. And I feel if I can take the more challenging things in life that I've gone to and somehow find a way to find the pleasure in them, that may sound a little bit sadistic, but to find the pleasure. And I use often the metaphor of a cold shower. For a long time, cold showers were not too pleasant, but I got to a place of actually appreciating them, savoring them for many reasons. And once I started to do that and notice that and let my senses kind of lean into that without letting my head immediately judge and say, no, not good, cold, bad, survival, and just kind of allow it to kind of flow, I suddenly realized there is pleasure in something that is kind of not pleasurable for a lot of people seemingly. But it has expanded my life. Now I go to the ocean side, and sometimes I'm the only person who goes in the water, and it's pretty cold, and I get a lot of pleasure out of that. And I'm looking around saying, wait a minute, this is pleasurable. And everyone's looking at me, like I'm totally nuts. And so it's integrating and expanding ourselves so that we can, almost in a sort of form of equanimity, like an equanimity vibration, to say, if somehow I can find and draw out the pleasure, the gifts, the value, and I get to choose the meaning, I get to give the perspective, I'm going to be smiling more, and I'm going to be giving more to people, and I'm going to be going through the things that are even challenging in my life more resiliently, and or getting back to the pleasure more quickly, I would say. So I don't know if that overly answers the pleasure, but there's a lot of value, and this is really why I started these talks. So tell me this, Gido. I mean, why do we keep ourselves out of flow, especially pleasurable flow?
Well, it's actually perfect to the example you used with the cold shower and now being able to swim in the ocean. You might have to ask me that question again in a moment in case I forget it. But I was just thinking, yes, the shower is cold. We don't want to do it, even though we feel we should be doing it. Maybe just because someone's told us, we should be, and it's good for your health, and everybody else seems to be doing it. Or because we actually feel, no, it feels like it's right for me, but I just can't get myself to do it because it's so painful. Now, from perspective of flow, it knows the pleasure and the joy you would get out of swimming in the ocean without having to go and holding yourself out from that vast experience. So you might have,
and that challenge,
exactly, and you might even have set the intention, I want to swim more in the ocean. I mean, you spend a lot of time on the ocean, so you might set the intention, I want to be able to swim longer during the year in the ocean. So flow is just preparing you. And that's the pleasure in flow, where you go, I don't know what this is good for right now, but I feel it's right. And in my experience, in the long run, you will always find out why you had to do it. Like me, why I had to stay on the couch. And then that was a very instant report, an instant effect. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer until you get to the ocean to realize this. And so why are we holding ourselves out of flow? I think your question was. Because we are conditioned to believe certain things about ourselves. When we grow up, in our childhood. We have all, we have all these, we learn the behaviors and the beliefs from our surroundings, our teachers, our preachers, our friends, our family. And I often, compare our subconscious mind with an operating system that we just build in when we grow up. And so when we are grown up, we often run filters and programs that have been installed 20, 30, 40 years ago when they were very helpful. But I don't know, as a 51-year-old, if it's still helpful to believe that the bullies on the playground don't like me if I act a certain way. So, but the program is still running there. So now I might feel, I want to do this. I want to do, I don't know, take a dance class, start painting, speak to that girl, speak to that guy, whatever's pleasurable right now. But then the old fears, the old triggers, the old programs that have been installed far too long. They have been they needed to be updated a long time ago, but they haven't. And so these old fears are being triggered. And if we don't address them, if we don't release those old fears, beliefs, filters, we keep ourselves not just from pleasure and joy, but from the greatest opportunities in our lives. So flow, I mean, how much can I swear on this call? Flow will trigger the shit out of you, because it goes, you want to do this, you want to go to the ocean, go take a cold shower.
I love that idea. That
you feel you want to speak in front of 3,000 people. Oh, your boss suddenly goes, I can't take this meeting, there's 12 people waiting, can you take this meeting? That's flow, putting you into a situation where you have to take care of something that you wanted. So flow will put you sometimes in very uncomfortable situations, but only because the vast outcome, the great outcome later on is just immense.
Yeah, and that's part of the pleasure. It's not only the destination. I mean, for me, it's much more along the path, and I think you've given a lot of demonstrations of how actually you can roll that in. So let me ask you this. I mean, what does flow have to do with performance? Because you work with a lot of world-class athletes and performers and other top executives and top people. So what do you have to share about what flow actually allows these people to achieve?
Well, thank you for asking this. I find this so important, because we all have what I just said, these filters, these programs, these beliefs about ourselves. And you would be surprised. We often think when somebody's in the public eye, when somebody has got the fame, the money, the house, the place for the best club, all of these different things, we think they are in flow and they have no problems and they're continuously happy. And I remember actually speaking to one of the best footballers we had in Germany. This was about 3 years ago. And I just met him. We didn't work together, but he knew what I was doing, and we started a conversation. And he said, I thought I would be happy now. And I said, what do you mean? And it was heartbreaking. He said, I've got the house, the fame, the money. I'm playing for one of the greatest clubs. I thought I would be happy by now. And so, because performing, very often they start this journey out of joy because they're in their passion. Let it be a singer, let it be a footballer, let it be a CEO who's, they're just great in what they do. And they strive there because they think when they get there, they find pleasure, they are happy. But they also have to deal with a lot of pressure, the same pressures that we are dealing with. And suddenly they put on a place where everybody's watching them. They, in their field, often become pop stars. And that triggers a lot of fears. That triggers a lot of, am I worthy feelings. That triggers, what happens if I fail? I mean, sometimes there's millions at stake. There's contracts at stake. There's 60,000 people watching you if you hit the ball or not. That's a lot of, and that's just live. I mean, then there's millions on the screen, and that's a lot of pressure. And flow comes into that when we start looking at what's the pressure under that pressure. Yes, the pressure is clear. The 60,000 people may be watching you live, and when you look into it, maybe you find, well, actually, I'm holding on to how my father treated me. Of, you know, I always needed to prove that I'm worthy, but I could never prove I'm worthy. So they're starting to play, and suddenly, you know, 60,000 people mirror 60,000 fathers who tell you you're not worthy. Just an example, you know, this, I'm just making this up. So if you then release those deepest inner fears that everybody has, this is not about something's wrong with you or you need fixing. You know, I think we all need healing because we're human beings. This is about where else do you want to grow? And if you start releasing whatever pressure, whatever fear is there, they are able to enjoy what they are so good at. This sounds like an absolute paradox, but they're suddenly able to enjoy what they're magnificent in. And very often, it's almost like you reconnect them to why they started what they're doing in the first place. Remind them how much fun it was to just play with their friends.
Wow.
And when you reconnect them with the joy and the pleasure of it, very often the pressure goes off and they get better results, because they start blocking themselves because they're trying to play towards the pressure instead of just staying in pleasure. Pressure versus pleasure.
There's the pleasure and flow. We've been looking for it all conversation.
Pleasure and pressure.
So that's beautiful. So tell me, Gido, it's 5:33 here in Paris and in Germany. And I wanted you to take an opportunity, we'll talk a little bit after this to wrap things up. But I wanted you to take an opportunity to share what's going on in the work that you are bringing into the world around flow, what you're offering and sharing with people today. What are the opportunities to experience you, grow with you, expand with you? Maybe you could share a little with us about that now.
I'd love to. Funny enough, what I'm about to share with you happened out of flow. I'm running currently this year's. I started running these group coachings because, you know, I have these one-on-one sessions. And then at the end of last year, just before Christmas, I was thinking about this whole situation that, you know, we're going through and that we were going through in 2020, and people are, you know, being suspended, sitting at home, not being able to do something. And I realized that this is the perfect time, as triggering as it is, to make some real changes in your belief system, in your self-worth, because you can't go to the gym, you can't see your family, you can't hang out with your friends, you couldn't go to your favorite pub. So all your normal triggers were suspended. So it was much easier to implant new beliefs. And out of this, I did, like back then, I did a free masterclass. And out of this, we developed a 6 weeks master's course, which, you know, you experienced. And we're going in these 6 weeks, we're looking at deeply what is your personal belief system. Where's your belief system supporting yourself, and where are you holding yourself back? Why are you allowing yourself not to be happy in this and this and this area, for instance? We're looking into connecting you to the perfect version, who you would be without any of the negative programming. We go deeply into letting go of past pain. Forgiveness is a massive topic for me. Self-forgiveness, and then creating new visions. And I'm very passionate about this program, as you can tell right now. And I'm starting a new one actually in English on the 23rd of September, so in 3 weeks. It's not even open yet. So, you know, we're opening that process next week. So that is what most of my focus is going on right now. So helping people to grow so they don't end up at some point saying, I thought I would be happy now.
Yeah, beautiful. It's beautiful work. I've experienced it myself, and I can tell you it's it helps you be very very skilled at being resilient in returning back into flow with yourself, with others, with your work, with your career. It's really very powerful stuff that you're doing, Gido. Really appreciate
I mean, if you don't mind, because if you go to my website, there's actually on the blog, we just started some free videos on that, so people can get an idea. So, you know, just check it out.
So your
Just my
website
name,
is?
Gido Schimanski, as easy as it is, GidoSchimanski.com.
We'll put it down in the
Yeah.
comments afterwards. So great. So to kind of head towards wrapping up slowly here, just a couple more questions for you. You know, what can you give like another story of someone who successfully stays in flow, and why that's the case? Do you have something from your experience, your coaching, your training, to give us another sense of what is it really like to stay in flow? And you know, have you seen the pleasure come out of this person because they are?
I've seen results come out, and with that pleasure, because they got to do what they were born to do. I haven't thought of, funny enough, I haven't thought of this story in years. I used to have a client when I was still living in London. He was an actor. He came over, and we worked through all the things that we had on our list. And I thought, actually, it sounds like we're done. We ticked off most of the boxes. Shall we just save the session and just go for a walk? Because we were becoming friends, and so we thought, Flo thought, there's nothing we have to work on right now. And so we started walking. We went to the park, and in the park, because he was so relaxed, we realized, oh no, there's of course there's always more to do. And there were some big beliefs that he was doing great work on TV, but he wanted to be in the movie. And as we spoke, it became very apparent to me, not to him just yet, the beliefs that he was holding about coming into the movies. There was stuff like, well, my agent isn't good enough, I don't have enough experience in the movie world, I'm a TV actor, all these different things. And as he was chucking out all of these limiting fears, beliefs, filters, we started exploring them. This conversation was maybe 15 minutes, and suddenly you could literally see how that bubble just popped open. And this man who's been trying to get into the movies for I think 3 years calls me the next day and says, within 24 hours, he had a call in for a casting for a British movie and one for a Hollywood movie. He hasn't been in for movie castings in years. And this is why I always say, for a lot of people, it's very woo-woo, but I say, the moment you change the inside, you open the filters, you can let in what's already waiting for you.
Yeah, I love that. Such a great story, Gido. And of course, the way that I'm looking at this is, together you kind of left the work mode, the work on paper, the heady kind of whatever you were doing, embodiment. I'm not sure. I'm not going to jump on that, and you went out and did something kind of leisure, kind of pleasurable, kind of, you used the word relaxed, like you'd both suddenly like kind of, okay, we're done with this session. Let's kind of, and then all this kind of magic came up, and all of this vulnerability and all this truth. He seemed to like suddenly see himself in the mirror with your kind of guidance. And I'm just wondering, what is the role of the subconscious in flow? Because you talk a lot about stuff that feels like it's going beyond a sort of conscious, mentally driven way of moving ahead in life and progressing and deciding and
I think you described it so perfectly, because we went into leisure, into pleasure, and out of expectation. I think that was, now that I'm thinking back, that was a big step. And I remember
out of expectation,
because you come, you sit down for a session, and you go, well, I paid good money for this, I need to get results now. And so clients often have this expectation. I actually remember someone calling me up saying, listen, can we move on the session, because I'm not my shiny self today, as you usually see me. I'm in a very dark place. And I said, this is exactly when you need to come. I need to see your demons, because if we get those, you can really start growing. And it was one of the best sessions. So people think they have, even when they come and see a coach, they still think they have to perform. I see this all the time. They think they have to deliver. And I think what you just described, or what you re-described to me was, okay, we're done, relax, let's do something pleasurable, leisurely, and suddenly it just goes pop, and there you are. I know this from my own stuff.
So is your work involve more allowing people to be with you in places of leisure? I love pleasure. I love the way you say leisure, because I say leisure. I think leisure is maybe the British way of saying it, because you just put a P in front of it and it becomes pleasure, right? Yeah. So I love that. But I would. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I'm just wondering, in your work, are you considering, or do you bring in more of these moments of, there's so many words you've said during this call about it feeling right, about allowing to receive, about being relaxed, about leisure moments, about dropping expectations, about surrender, not having expectations. There's a lot there that I would more put into sort of a moment of pleasure than I would like a moment of working almost, right? Or am I seeing this the wrong way? That's a setup of a question.
It depends. I mean,
you got one minute to answer it, because we're at 5:43, so 1 minute.
It's like we set ourselves a time goal here.
Yeah.
I like to sometimes, yes, like, yes, let's go for a walk in the forest or something like this. My clients are usually somewhere else in the world, so that doesn't happen very easily. However, I always strive to create a place or a room. I call it like an unconditional room, of unconditional love, really, so somebody can experience themselves. And I guess that is also a very pleasurable space to be in. Space is the word I was looking for. Maybe, we should look into doing retreats on the ocean with cold showers in the morning.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm always, looking to have, experiences and coaching and mentoring and masterminds, these type of things around like dining and food experiences and physical experience, so that you're using pleasure as the gateway to accessing, opening up, touching what you are talking about, a certain sense of flow, which, as you said, doesn't necessarily mean it's all easy afterwards, but that is. So it is 5:44, and I wanted to kind of wrap things up, if that's okay. And I'm going to say a couple words here, and then I would like, if you would, I'd like for you to close off the show for us today with some pleasurable flow. So first, I just want to thank everyone for watching today, if you've come by, and if you're watching this not live also. The Make Living Pleasurable Show is a weekly show on Facebook, on my profile page, which is also posted later on to my YouTube channel, where you can go and see it and share it, like it, do whatever you would enjoy that would be pleasurable for you. The idea of this podcast is to start exploring areas of life where we maybe don't really realize that pleasure is actually a key component of it, and to kind of debunk and pull pleasure out of the closet a little bit, and not have it be such a hedonistic, extreme kind of a example of how you can live your life, because I feel bringing more pleasure into the various aspects of our life is a more joyful life, loving life, peaceful life, compassionate life, purposeful and performant. That's the other words, isn't it? So with that said, I invite you to come join us. We have shows in the coming weeks with some beautiful people around many subjects, so stay tuned. And with that, I want to pass it over to you, Gido, to share whatever you want to share and close up today's show. And thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. And I always say to my clients, my biggest gift to you is that I already know that the story you tell yourself isn't true. So I want to dare you to step out of your own way, step into flow, and surrender to pleasure. Pleasure is a good thing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gido. Thanks, everyone. Bye.